discourage Alyssa Thomas from making some of her great passes.
No one picks up Clark, who cans the three.
Throughout the 2024 season, it was painfully clear that Caitlin Clark wasn't just boosting the WNBA. She was single-handedly pulling it out of obscurity. On the court, she shattered records. Off the court, she drew eyeballs to screens and filled seats like a one-woman marketing machine. Viewership records, attendance records, and merchandise records all went through the roof. And we're not talking about small increases. This was seismic. A league that once struggled to fill a high school gym was suddenly selling out NBA arenas. And guess what? That's why the WNBA just secured a $2.2 billion media rights deal. That's why, for the first time in history, WNBA players are about to see real money in their contracts when the new collective bargaining agreement is signed. And yet, despite all of this, despite every statistic shouting the obvious, there are still players, owners, and media heads performing full-blown PR gymnastics to avoid crediting Caitlin Clark for this transformation. The mental hoops they're jumping through to ignore her influence could qualify for an Olympic event. And now, we have what might be the most ridiculous example of this so far, courtesy of the Atlanta Dream. It's like catching a kid with chocolate smeared all over their face, insisting they didn't touch the cookie jar. Unless there's more to this story, the Dream's ownership certainly looks like they're cashing in on Caitlin's success. The fan reaction? Absolutely priceless. Is this just the beginning, or are we in for another year of people tying themselves in knots trying to rewrite reality? Let's dive in, but first, hit that like button if you already know the haters will try to take credit for Caitlin's success. So, as you know, Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever had an absolute monster of an offseason. First, they parted ways with Christy Sides and brought in Stephanie White, a major coaching upgrade. Then, they locked down Kelsey Mitchell to keep their sharpshooter in Indy. Finally, they attacked free agency like a Miley Cyrus wrecking ball, stacking their roster with Sophie Cunningham, Natasha Howard, Deanna Bonner, and Sydney Colson. Fever fans aren't just excited. They're feeling championship vibes, and the hype is already off the charts. They sold out a preseason game. Yes, a preseason game. Against a Brazilian squad featuring players you've probably never heard of. The momentum Caitlin built last season isn't just carrying over, it's intensifying. You know how they say absence makes the heart grow fonder? Well, Caitlin took a break, making this the longest time she's spent away from the game since 2023. Now, fans are feeling major withdrawal. Speaking of withdrawals, teams across the league are about to cash in again on the Caitlin Clark effect. Last season, it was estimated that 1 in 6 tickets sold were due to Caitlin. She didn't just sell out Gainbridge Fieldhouse, where Fever home games averaged over 17,000 fans per night, an increase of 400% from the previous year. She sold out everywhere she played. Teams are recognizing this and upgrading their venues to NBA-sized arenas. The Mystics moved their Fever games to Capital One Arena, the Aces upgraded to T-Mobile Arena, and the Dream shifted their Fever matchups to State Farm Arena, home of the Hawks. You don't need a PhD in economics to understand what's going on here. Every one of these moves was made to cash in on the tidal wave of fans willing to spend money just to watch Caitlin play. Is it a little embarrassing for WNBA teams to admit that their biggest crowds show up for their opponent? Sure. But that's the reality. If the league wants to thrive, and if teams want to make real money, they'd be foolish not to upgrade their venues. Heck, maybe they should try an NFL stadium. I wouldn't be surprised if they sold out anyway. The Caitlin Clark money machine is back online, and teams are lining up to collect. Of all the teams, it was the Chicago Sky that made the most obvious move of the season. They moved their Fever games, only their Fever games, to the United Center, home of the Bulls. That's a 21,000-seat arena, and guess what? It sold out in 1 minute. Honestly, at this point, they could probably move the games to Soldier Field and still pack the house. I'm not even joking. Caitlin Clark has that kind of gravitational pull. Nothing like this has ever been seen in this league, and if you're a women's basketball fan, you've got to be excited to see this level of love for the game. But here's where it gets hilarious. When the Sky made the announcement, they were still playing games.
Look, I get it. They can't just come out and say, we moved to a bigger arena to cash in.
When it comes to Caitlin Clark, come on. Anything else feels like trying to ignore the elephant in the room while taking a selfie with it. And if you thought that PR stunt was ridiculous, you haven't seen anything yet. The Atlanta Dream just announced that they're moving their home opener to State Farm Arena, which, surprise surprise, just happens to be against Caitlin Clark and the Fever. So, obviously this looks just like what the Sky did, and what many teams did last season, relocating to bigger venues to sell more tickets when Caitlin's in town. Let's be real, the difference between these venues is insane. Gateway Center Arena, where the Dream usually play, holds 3,500 fans. State Farm Arena, where the Hawks play, holds 17,000. Do the math. It's not just an upgrade, it's a 5x capacity increase. I mean, have you seen pictures of Gateway? It's so small, I swear Brittany Griner's head is going to graze the roof. Anyway, you'd think the Dream's PR team would at least put out a statement acknowledging Caitlin and the Fever, maybe something vague like what the Sky did, dancing around the obvious. Nope. Instead, get a load of this. The Dream's majority owner dropped this absolute masterpiece. We have invested significant resources and energy into making Gateway Center Arena the most unique home court experience in the WNBA. However, due to a scheduling conflict at Gateway, we saw an opportunity to bring this exciting early season matchup to State Farm Arena, allowing even more fans to experience it. We appreciate the hospitality. Wait, did I read that right? A scheduling conflict? What are the odds? You've got the most popular athlete in America, and easily the biggest draw in the league, coming to town, and suddenly your tiny arena just happens to have a scheduling conflict? I mean, what's going on that day? A bar mitzvah? A flea market? Maybe an Ashley Simpson concert? So, I checked. Nothing's listed on their website. Not a single scheduling conflict at the time. I'm sure something will show up later, but let's be honest, plenty of fans aren't buying this explanation. And this? This right here is the most frustrating thing about the WNBA. The audacity of owners and players who gladly
The reason why we watching women's basketball is not just because of one person, it's because of me too, and I want y'all to realize that.
And when they're not desperately trying to take credit, they're trying to tear her down. It's almost like they're scared of giving Caitlin the credit she deserves, because they might lose some of their own spotlight. Instead of embracing the fact that she's been a game changer for the league, some people seem determined to minimize her impact, or even undermine her.
We say her stats are today, what?
20 points, 8.4 assists, 6 rebounds.
That's crazy.
But 5
That's crazy.
5
Is that
5.6
those are
turnovers
hell of a
too.
number.
Those are hell of a numbers.
But to me, that's not
Period.
dominating.
It sure seems like they're downplaying Caitlin's impact. Oh, Caitlin's in town? What a total coincidence that our arena has a conflict that wasn't listed at the time, and we just happened to move to a venue 5 times bigger. This is exactly what's rubbing fans the wrong way. See, the magic of Caitlin Clark isn't just in her record-smashing, deep three draining, no-look behind the backpass wizardry on the court. It's the fact that she single-handedly expanded the WNBA's audience. She didn't just bring in more fans, she brought in casuals. People who, before Caitlin, wouldn't have known the WNBA from a local rec league. Now they've got team merch, league pass, and strong opinions on defensive rotations. That's why 18.9 million people tuned in to watch Caitlin's Iowa Hawkeyes in the NCAA championship game. She's got the deep threes, the Einstein-level basketball IQ, and the ability to turn a half-second of daylight into a SportsCenter highlight.
48 triples coming into the game.
Longo! Samuelson, nice pass there to Clark. Clark behind the back. Oh, it's Smith with the finish. Brilliance from Caitlin Clark.
Xander Lucini, some good length on the perimeter on Caitlin. That is a tough pass, and somehow she got it in.
Here's the thing. The new fans know this. So when they hear people claim Caitlin Clark isn't the reason for the WNBA's popularity spike, she's not responsible for selling out games, and totally not the reason the Atlanta Dream just randomly moved their Fever game to an arena 5 times bigger than their usual one. They roll their eyes so hard they could sprain a retina. These fans remember what the WNBA was like before Caitlin. They know it wasn't pulling NBA-level crowds, and they probably never thought they'd watch a game. They are the product of the Caitlin Clark effect. So trying to gaslight them into thinking otherwise is like telling people the earth is flat. Aside from my Uncle Terry, who thinks Antarctica is a giant ice wall at the edge of the world, people aren't buying it. And that's exactly why, When Angel Reese starts pounding her chest and threatening to strike for what the players deserve, fans take to X and YouTube like detectives with a database of layup misses. Let's be real, there's plenty of skill in the WNBA, but if Angel wasn't so desperate for attention and demanding credit, fans wouldn't feel the need to remind her of what a 2-foot airball looks like. They post these clips to send a message. Don't forget, we're only here because of Caitlin Clark. And at this rate, we're going to be seeing a lot more of this in 2025, let's be clear. The Fever are stacked. This isn't just Caitlin Clark dragging a lottery team to relevance. This is Caitlin Clark with actual weapons. Last season, she went straight from March Madness to the WNBA, barely catching her breath before jumping into a league filled with veterans actively trying to humble her. This year? Different story. She's rested, stronger, and has an all-star supporting cast. Now she has all the tools to absolutely dominate. So, what are the haters and grifters going to say when Caitlin starts dropping 25 points and 11 assists per game? How are they going to spin it when Fever regular season viewership starts, creeping into NBA territory? What's the excuse going to be when the Fever make a deep playoff run and shatter WNBA ratings records so badly, they have to invent a new graph? Will they say her statistical dominance is because she's on a super team now? Will they give all the credit to the emergence of Aaliyah Boston? Or, when all else fails, will they stick to the same tired excuse that her success is just because of her skin color? I have a feeling the excuse factory will be working overtime. Because no matter what she does, whether she dominates, wins a championship, breaks records, or literally keeps the WNBA in business, there will always be people trying to downplay her, even as they cash the check she's writing for them. And fortunately for the league and all its players, Caitlin gets it. Like the fans, she's not oblivious to her impact. She knows players past and present are jealous. She knows that no matter how professionally and diplomatically she carries herself, the same people cashing in on her success will still be taking shots at her on podcasts and in post-game interviews. She also knows she'll never be compensated fairly salary-wise for what she's done for the league. But for her, the real victory isn't about stacking WNBA paychecks. It's about ensuring the people around her thrive. Because for Caitlin, it's about legacy. She's chasing Michael Jordan-level status, iconic forever. No matter who comes into the league, no matter what they accomplish, they will always be measured against her. LeBron just scored his 50,000th point, but in the minds of so many fans, he will never touch Jordan. And if he did touch him, he'd probably flop like his team was down a few buckets. And really, it goes beyond basketball. Caitlin has the draw to elevate women's sports as a whole. Greatness begets greatness. For young female fans witnessing a player single-handedly elevate an entire league, she's breaking barriers and providing a masterclass in what it means to be a leader. This translates to any athletic endeavor. Anyway, expect more of this nonsense in 2025. At this point, it's not even frustrating, it's hilarious. Caitlin will keep breaking records while the same people who owe their financial security to her will keep pretending she's not the reason. And we'll all be here, watching them twist themselves into knots trying to explain why a